My name is Lindsay Watley, and I am the Community Engagement Manager here at the town of Pendleton. I wanted to come here today to go over some slides about the check-in process as well as the festival. So as everyone is aware, our festival is this weekend, Saturday, October 26, 2024, and the actual event runs from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So as we progress through this slideshow, we'll talk a little bit about setup on Friday as well as Saturday and give you lots of good information that you'll need to know to make your check-in process and event time spectacular. So we look forward to having you guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at the end of the video via email to answer any questions that you might have. The four areas that we're going to talk about this evening are vendor guidelines. So when you signed up to be a vendor with the town of Pendleton, there was a list of requirements and guidelines that you were to meet in order to be a participant. So we'll go over those and talk about those and have some reminders about what our expectations are for the event. The second thing we'll talk about is the check-in process and unloading our things. The third thing is moving our vehicles and parking those vehicles for the time of the festival. And then the fourth thing is packing up, cleaning up, and getting out of town after a successful and amazing experience at the town of Pendleton. So we're going to quickly go over the vendor guidelines to which you agreed on when you signed up to be a vendor. So the first is taxes and licenses. As a vendor, it is your responsibility for collecting and reporting all taxes that is associated with sales during the festival. It is not our job as a committee or Town of Pendleton to report those on your behalf. So please be sure you keep that in mind. If you are a food vendor, you want to be sure that you are following all DHEC regulations and that you're displaying those registration documents appropriately throughout the festival. The second thing we want to remind you of is that when you signed up, you did sign a hold harmless agreement, meaning that you understand your participation in this festival is voluntary and that no sponsors or the town or any volunteers associated with the festival will be held responsible for any losses or damages that do occur or could occur, hopefully not, during the festival. The third thing is equipment and supplies. So as a festival committee, we do provide organization, marketing, and the space for you to be able to host your sales. We do not provide things like tables or tents or chairs, extension cords, or generators or any of those types of items that you may need on a food truck or to run your business. So keep that in mind that we don't provide the supplies and materials that you need in order to set up as a vendor, and that you are responsible for setting up your setup. When we talk about loading and unloading and parking, we will mention we will have volunteers and staff there to assist you to your area, but it is your responsibility as a business and as a vendor that you set up that area, because we don't have enough staff or volunteers to designate one person for each vendor. As much as we would love to do that and be completely hospitable to everybody here, we unfortunately don't have that manpower, and so it's important to know that you will be responsible for setting up your areas. One of the biggest things to keep in mind is that each space is a 10-foot by 10-foot area. So any tents that exceed that space or a setup that exceeds that space will not be authorized. There are vendors who have purchased 2 spots, which would give you a combined area of 20 by 20. So if you do see larger tents, it is most likely because somebody has purchased multiple booth spaces, which they've combined to one larger space. Also, we want to remind you that the festival is alcohol and tobacco free, and we also have no pets in the event area. So we do ask kindly that you keep your pets at home. As much as we love animals at the town of Pendleton during the event, we try to be hospitable to everybody, and we do not allow pets in the event area. Of course, service animals are always welcome. And one final housekeeping tip that we want to talk about, and that's restrooms. So this festival does run from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. And as a vendor, you're going to be there the longest out of everybody who comes to the event. So it's really important for you to know where the public restrooms are located so that when the time comes and you can take a break and go use the restroom, you know where those are available. So the first is at the Buddy Durham parking lot. We do have two handicap accessible porta-johns brought into the back right corner. You can actually see there on the diagram, there's a little picture and I put an animation of the portalet. So that's where that would be located. They are brand new. They arrive on Friday and they are serviced. So they're not a permanent structure there. So if you want to just think about the quality of that portalet, I just wanted to let you know those are brought in just for the event. The second is a permanent public restroom that is located on East Queen Street. So if you are familiar with our downtown area, that's behind the Pendleton bookshop. There's a picture there. So if you look up East Queen Street, you'll see a white building in the background if you follow that arrow, and that is our public restrooms. We do kindly ask that you do not enter the town merchants and request to use their restrooms. The event, there is a huge need and request for restrooms from our merchants. And we ask kindly that you don't use those restrooms, but do use those that are provided for the event at our public restroom locations, as well as those portalets that we brought in for your use. Thank you. The vendor, there's going to be two different times for check-in and unloading your materials for the festival. So we're going to go over both of them separately, and we're also going to go over the different directions in which you will enter your check-in areas. Because the roadways will be going opposite what they're signed. So one road is an opposite direction of the one-way road that's established traditionally. We do want to go over those extensively. So just be sure that you're aware there are 2 days that you can check in. It's a Friday and then also Saturday. So we'll go over each of those days separately and talk about what those will look like for each day. When we are thinking about setting up and bringing our items to the festival, there's 2 days. There's Friday as well as Saturday. So let's focus on our Friday date, which is a vendor unload time of 3 to 6. Okay, so when we're thinking about this process, the first thing we want to note is which direction do we need to go to our check-in area. We've got some maps coming up that we're going to talk about that, but in order to know what route to take to check in for the festival, you're going to need to know your vendor number. That vendor number is associated with a spot on the event map. Okay, so where do you get this vendor number? The vendor number is emailed to you by Amy and Amber. There's an Excel sheet that has a list of businesses in alphabetical order. So you would go down to your business. Let's just pretend ours is ABC. So we go down to ABC business and we look over to our vendor number. That vendor number, we're going to say for an example, is 37. So ABC business, 37. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take that number 37, we're going to find it on the map. Okay, so we kind of know where it's at. And then as we start to talk about how to check in, there's going to be 2 areas. One area for 1 to 52, which is where we would be, and then one for 53 to 100. So we'll get to that in a little bit. So first thing we need to know is our vendor number. We get that through that email. The second thing we want to note is that once we check in successfully, and we'll talk about that map in a second, once we get to our spot, we're going to unload our items, but we are not going to set up the area. In order to keep things moving, it's really important that we quickly unload all of our vendors and then have them move their vehicles to another area to be parked safely. We'll also talk about those locations in a little bit. So keep that in mind. You are not authorized to keep your vehicle in the event area for a long period of time because it causes congestion in the event staging area. The third thing we want to talk about is, so picking between a Friday unloading and a Saturday unloading. We really want to encourage everybody to go ahead and get your things in and unload on Friday, which will keep the rush of vendors on Saturday to a minimum. And so if you do come on Friday and check in, we want to let you know we do have security who'll be looking over the event area. With that said, on Friday, we do not encourage or endorse completely setting up your stuff. It is very difficult to keep that secure and safe. And so what we want you to do and encourage you to do is to keep your items in containers and boxes, and then cover those containers and boxes with your tent. That way, if there's any nefarious people who are trying to do bad and take things, will be able to easily identify them, because they are certainly being mischievous and going under your tent and trying to do bad things. So we really encourage you to do it that way. We do not encourage you to leave your tent up completely set up and then walk away. Okay, so we just want to note that and really encourage you to think about coming on Friday. That way all your things will be where it needs to be. Your tent will be there, your chairs and tables will be there, and you'll be ready to go and have an easy breezy Saturday morning when you come back. You can go ahead and go straight to your parking area. Let us know you're there. We'll come and get you with the golf cart, and it'll be a really good experience for you. So we encourage that very much. We'll also talk about the additional information about Saturday in a moment. All right, so we've looked at our map. We kind of know where we're located. We know our number because we checked our Excel file and found our business name. And now I've decided on Friday, man, I can't make it for that drop off during the designated time period, so I'm going to have to do it on Saturday. So what are those times, right? So on Saturday, vendors have to be here in Pendleton setting their items up between 7 and 9:30 in the morning. Unfortunately, if you do not make it here by 9:30, we will have to turn you away. It's for the safety of our participants. We cannot have vehicles going in and out of the event space after that time. So really be sure, get that coffee brewed, get here early in the morning, 7 to 9:30. So we're going to start looking at maps at this point. So we know we're 37, we know we're ABC. And the biggest thing is that, especially on Saturday morning when we have a big rush of vendors, we want to be sure that we're slow and steady as we go down our routes and that we do not pass our number, okay? Super duper important that we park where we need to park for the unloading. All right, so you should have received a Excel chart with your business name and vendor number on it. So for the purposes of this video, we are going to assume that we are the ABC company and that our number is 37. So as we continue on with check-in procedures, we want to keep in mind that vendor number so that we can check in the right location. So this map here is the accurate map for 2024. And as you can see, the flow of traffic is all going towards that exit. During the check-in process and the unloading process, you are not able to back up in the staging area. So it's really important that you know where your location is and approximately how many vendors forward you are in terms of your location. So for us, let's look at 37. It is right there across from 1826 Bistro. So in our mind, we know that we are going to check in with the 1 through 57 group, which is right here on Exchange Street. So we would come up Queen Street, East Queen Street, and we would take a right, or if you're coming the other direction, you would take a left onto Exchange Street, check in there, and then as we drive down, we want to drive slowly and safely, and as we pass 29, 33, as we get close to the bistro, be sure that we slow down and are ready for our area to stop. We'll talk a little bit about unloading procedures, or we might have already actually talked about it in the slide before. So just remember that you are going to unload your things and then exit. So once you unload all your boxes, your crates, and your tents, you're going to continue forward, and then you would take that right there and exit onto Mechanic Street. So there is no reversing during this process. Super important to know what entrance you come, what check-in point you are, and where about on the map you're located. And again, that information can be found on the Excel sheet that was sent out with the businesses and vendor numbers. All right, so remember our fictional company is the ABC company, and we're in the 30s with our vendor number. So this map shows us exactly where we would check in since we hit that range between 1 and 57. So if you look at this Google map image, you can see that Mechanic Street is running into East Queen Street. So Mechanic Street is that main drag that will take you into Clemson that connects to Pendleton Road. So if you're coming by Mechanic and you're coming up Queen that direction towards the check-in area, you're going to take a right. So you'll stop there where you see that little box where it says check-in 1 through 57, and then you can also come to this check-in point two ways. So you can either come up that direction, or you can come down, if you're at Town Hall or if you're at the school district office, come in that direction towards Exchange Street via East Queen. You're going to take a left onto Exchange Street. So anytime you think about that word Exchange Street, I always try to think of those vendors that line that street there and how they exchange tender. So that's kind of how I remember that it being Exchange Street. But anyhow, so when you come on in, you're going to stop at that check-in location and we'll get you sent to your spot down Exchange Street. So if you're a vendor 58 through 102, you will have kind of a two-step process to think about in terms of check-in, because you will want to line up in a very specific direction on South Broad Street. So I wanted to start by looking at step one. When you're entering South Broad, it's important that we're going towards East Queen. And so this photo kind of shows the direction in which we want you to line up. So this is for vendors 58 through 102. So for our fictional business, this would not be applicable for check-in. And we want to make it very clear that if you do try to check in the wrong area, you will be turned around and go the other direction. So this is East Queen Street, and it's going this direction. So the reason I said congestion likely, if you're coming up the road, East Queen from right where that exchange check-in is, you're going to have backup of other people checking in at that first check-in spot. So I highly recommend that you go around the opposite direction and come towards South Broad so that you can take a left. So right here on South Broad where that white line is, we're going to have a lineup area to the right. Okay, so we're not going to block the roadway, but everybody will line up on the right-hand side of South Broad Street. Now, if you're coming the other direction, obviously you're not going to be able to take a right onto East Main Street. So we'll look at that picture in a little bit. So super important that you come down. This is that road that if you're at Town Hall or at Anderson 4 office, that you're coming towards the square. So Brews would be on the left. So you want to come that direction, take a left into South Broad Street and line up. Okay, so this is kind of the second map I wanted to show you. So the white line there going down South Broad Street is where you're going to be lining up on the side of the road. Therefore, you can take a right into our East Main check-in area to check in with our staff. So I really want to make this very clear that if you're coming down East Main to go straight, you'll be turned away and you're going to be asked to turn right and then turn around and come on South Broad the correct direction. And then if you're coming straight into the check-in area, not from South Broad, but the opposite street, you will be asked to go around and come to the South Broad lineup. So super important that you line up on South Broad towards East Main and that you take a right into the check-in area. No other lines of traffic will be serviced for check-in. If you are a food vendor, your locations are going to be on that top of Exchange Street or the back side of East Main, on either side of East Main there. So your assigned route is going to depend on the location of your food truck. So please be sure that you check your email to see whether you're going to check in at the 1 through 58 route or the 58 through 102. So that's really important so that your food, especially with food trucks because of the size of those vehicles, you really want to be sure you're coming in through Exchange Street or East Main, depending on your location. And like we've said in the video, following those directions is super important because you're not able to back up or turn around once you get into that route. We will have to take you all the way back around and through. So just be sure you're aware of whether or not you enter the 1 through 58 route or the 58 through 102 route. Right, so we're 37, the ABC company. We've unloaded, we've put everything in our area in our space, and it is time for us to move our vehicle. So there's only one exit for vendors during this festival, and that's going to be straight out of East Main Street. So if you're the group that is 1 through 52 and you entered through Exchange Street the opposite direction that the road normally goes, you're going to come out of Exchange Street you're going to come all the way out towards the Village Baker, and you're going to take a right. Do not take a left. You will not be able to take a left. So be sure you take a right, and you're going to go out through East Main Street. And then you're going to want to take a right on Mechanic Street, because that's where all of the vendor parking is going to be. You should be given a QR code that will let you go ahead and put that in your phone and take you to one of the designated parking areas that we have for vendors. With that said, taking a left would only take you to the Tri-County parking lot. So we really encourage you to take a right so that you can get to your parking area as quickly as possible. So once again, one exit. If you are 52 through 100, you're just going to keep straight to down East Main to Mechanic Street. And then if you're on Exchange Street going the opposite direction the road normally goes, you're going to take a right all the way down East Main to Mechanic Street. So simple, easy exit. We just want to make the flow of traffic all go one direction. Great. So we have exited through East Main Street, and you are most likely have been given a QR code. If you have not, there are 4 different areas that you can park as a vendor. The first is the town hall parking lot. If you have a trailer or a large vehicle, this is your best option for sure, because there's a large grass lot as well as a cement lot. Please note that it is a little distance from the event area. It's not unmanageable walk, but if you do have any type of ambulatory issues where you might need help getting to and from the event area, please call us or text us. In that email, when you got your map and your vendor number, there are some contact numbers there for you to assist golf cart shuttles. So we have 2 6-seater golf carts that help shuttle people to and from those parking lots. Another good option, not necessarily for big, large vehicles, but for normal size sedans, SUVs, and trucks, is the Pendleton Dental Care parking lot. Again, there will be a shuttle to and from. And then also there's on-street parking on South Broad Street and North Broad Street, which is really close to the event area. Also a good option, and that is on-street parking. So just keep that in mind. The event coordinators and check-in people should give you a QR code so you can scan that and take it right to your directions. There are information on the back on how to use a QR code if you've never done that before. And if you have any issues, be sure you look in your settings to be sure that the location function on your cell phone is activated, or else the GPS won't be able to coordinate with your phone. We do also ask that anytime you're parking on-street parking, do not block driveways, okay? Remember, there are a lot of people who live in town on the square, off the square, and keeping their properties, their private properties accessible is really important. So we don't want to block in any driveways. And please display your hang tag that we give you so that we know you're a vendor. Okay, a quick recap, and then we're going to talk about a safe departure from the event. So, step 1, we get our email. We know our vendor number. We check the map. We know what that is. We identify which check-in area that we're going to be in, whether that be 1 through 52 or 53 through 100. And we identify how we're going to get there, what direction we need to get there. We check in, receive our QR code on how to park. We're going to unload our items at our spot, whether that be Friday or Saturday, 2 options. And then we're going to relocate our car if we're there on Saturday. You're going to move it to one of the 4 designated areas. If you need assistance with getting back to the event area, you're going to text us or call us, or flag down a golf cart. We'll have 2 golf carts going to get you to and from those parking areas. Then we're going to set up our items in our area. We're going to be sure that we stay within our 10 by 10 area, and that we're nice, kind neighbors to all of our vendors who are there. And we're going to have a wonderful, awesome event. Let's hope for wonderful weather. This event is rain or shine, but we obviously want some nice fall weather. So let's all keep positive vibes about the weather. We're going to have a great event. We are working really hard to promote this event in the community as well as and throughout the upstate. So spread the word, follow us on social media, share the vendor highlights and the information that we're putting out. We have a great entertainment schedule as well. Be sure to check in with the welcome table, the visitor table at the event. We'll have all kinds of information there for you. So once the event concludes at 5 o'clock, remember that at that point, as vendors, it's our job to leave no trace of participation. So what that means is we want to be sure that our area has no waste in it, that we drop all of our trash in the roll carts that are placed around the square, and that we dispose of trash throughout the event as needed. So you want to do a good sweep around your area. Be sure that your designated vendor number area is clear of any debris, leftover materials, those types of things. Please be courteous of everyone. So as people go to retrieve their vehicles to load their items up, it does become stressful and chaotic. So please be courteous of the other vendors who are also wrapping up and trying to get home. It is a long day and there's a lot of social interaction that happens and we're all very much fatigued. But we want to be sure that we're being courteous and kind to the vendors and neighbors in the area. So drive safely, take your time, and know that we're all going in the same direction at the same time, and we're all going to get there and hopefully safely. So be sure to do that and look for pedestrians in the roadway, right? So at this point in time, we've got people moving stuff into vehicles and there are people in the area. So drive safely. After that, you're all loaded up and you're heading home and you're thinking about the wonderful experience that you've had in the town of Pendleton. The next couple days or weeks, you'll be getting a survey from the town of Pendleton about your experience. Give us your feedback and let us know how it went. We are so very thankful that you're a part of our town on Saturday and hopefully Friday if you decide to set up. We welcome you to town. We're happy to have you and hope that it's a wonderful event for 2024.